What is up, mortals? Welcome to Season 2 Part 1 of What If Deku Was Trained by Stain. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the story. Gran Torino and Midoriya used every possible surface as their battleground. Ceiling, floor, cabinets, walls, and appliances were nothing but footing for them. They kept whizzing past each other. Izuku couldn't land a hit. His kicks were too obvious, and he couldn't switch to using one for all in his arms fast enough. Whenever he would try to attack, be it punch or kick, he was left wide open, and Gran Torino would take advantage of that. After a while, both of them knew that this form of training was proving to be useless. Midoriya was strong. He knew how to fight and had good reflexes. His problem was how he handled one for all. Gran Torino stopped their training. I need to get better at using this power, you say. You're right. You've still yet to fully grasp how to use one for all. Your enemies won't wait for you to catch up. What should I do? Izuku's question was more of a mumbled-out thought to himself than a genuine query for Torino. When you find that out, we'll start training again. I'm heading out to buy some grub. Clean up the place for me. Why don't you? Oh, and check the lights. Flip the switches a few times to make sure they work. Gran Torino was already out the doorway by the time he finished his spiel. Midoriya got to work cleaning. The entire time he thought to himself, how could he get better at using one for all? It worked in a way that wasn't that different from a light switch. A bunch of light switches would be more accurate. Everywhere he could activate, it was like a room in a house, so what would happen if he lit up the whole house? Izuku thought back to the sports festival. His fight with Todoroki, to be more specific. Deku wanted to slap himself for being so stupid. He'd already flipped all the switched on once before. Midoriya had been so stubborn in the way he thought of one for all. It wasn't a tool like his weapons were, it was a part of his body now. Izuku finished cleaning up and left before Gran Torino came back. Izuku Midoriya had been right about the League of Villains. Stain hadn't had a reason to doubt his apprentice. In fact, he didn't doubt Midoriya for a second. The vigilantly turned villain had his own reason for indulging in their request. Depending on how south their meeting went, they would be his next victims. He stood in their bar, licking his lips. They'd given him some information already. I've heard about you before this. The group who assaulted UA. What makes you think I'd be interested in joining your little gang? Stain wanted to leave. It was more than evident in his voice that he was fed up with them. Even before their little conversation started, he'd shown some hostility. The more the young man covered in hands droned on, the more he felt like killing them. Bloodlust without conviction was meaningless. These were the type of people he hated the most. Shigaraki kept going on about destroying what he didn't like. Stain was almost clocked and ready to leave. Killing them would be for another day. It wasn't until the Pale One held up a picture of his old apprentice that he started to really listen to what was being said. Like this little brat, for instance. Everything. The Stygian ninja shot his body forward and pinned down the pastel-skinned villain. He threatened Tamura with his knives, one dangerously close to the young man's neck and the other in his shoulder. The more Shigaraki talked and joked, the closer Stain wedged his knives to his neck. That boy has the will and conviction to become a true hero. Someone without it, weak like you, could never destroy him. The weak ones will be weeded out. It's only natural. That's why you're about to die. By the time Stain finished talking, his knife was already digging into the careless villain's neck, creating a runnel of blood. Shigaraki pleaded with Kurogiri to set him free of the nightmare that stapled him to the floor. It was too late, though. Stain's work was already in effect, and the shrouded evildoer couldn't move. Midoriya will show the word that the word hero has lost its original meaning. In this corrupt society filled with fakers and shams, along with them, criminals who aimlessly throw their weight around. You're all a part of my purge. Stain chuckled to himself as he continued to draw his blade into Tamura's neck. It wasn't until his knife clanked against the hand covering his face that Tamura did something. He grabbed onto the edge of the blade. It disintegrated and fell to pieces once all 5 fingers made contact. All the while, he threatened the noseless crusader for almost damaging the appendage. Stain jumped back and readied himself. As soon as Shigaraki was standing again, he charged forward. Before he could reach his target, a pitch-black abyss of mist swallowed him, and he reappeared in Hasu. After taking in his surroundings for a while, it was decided he would finish his business here, and his next target would be the League. Stain took out his phone and sent a message to Izuku. While training to control one for all in a new way, Midoriya got a message from his former master. It was the usual cryptic drabble that didn't make much sense. It sounded like the message was severely out of context. At least he knew his former master was safe. He wasn't sure how he felt about that, though. Izuku hadn't been concentrating on it, but the thought that the hero killer and his master could be one and the same had been bothering him. If that was the case, he didn't want to think about it. There were too many conflicting emotions at once. Before we get back into the story, I would like to say that we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over the hard facts of the anime presented. Now, in case you guys didn't know, we have a third channel called Anime Theory. Anime theory mainly focuses on a large variety of mind-boggling anime theories. If you are interested in content like this, please go check the description below or click the eye icon in the top right corner. Now with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. Izuku went back to focusing on his training. The new technique he came up with, full cowling, was still strenuous and hard to move in. Midoriya continued practicing by climbing alleyways and jumping around on building tops. 5% had gotten pretty comfortable, so he bumped it up to 10. He continued into the morning, then headed back to Gran Torino's place. When Izuku got back, Torino was still asleep. He decided it'd be a good idea to get some rest and took a seat at the small table in his current advisor's apartment. It wasn't long before Gran Torino was up, though. Sleep deprivation was evident on Midoriya's face, and it didn't go unquestioned. "I was doing some training last night and lost track of time." A proud, exhausted grin was plastered on his face as he spoke. He was finally able to use one for all effectively. No more need to worry about a succeeding increased delayed activation time for his attacks. He explained full cowling to Gran Torino and showed off his use of it. Last night he had discovered his current upper limit for one for all was 13%. Any more and his entire body would screech at him in pain. Torino smiled, hearing about the progress Midoriya had made. "You've got more going for you than when he was training." The only thing All Might had going for him was his body. "We trained every day until he was ready to puke." There were stars in Midoriya's eyes while he listened. He hadn't heard much about when his role model was still training. "I couldn't half-ass his training. He was entrusted to me by a dear departed friend." Gran Torino's face grew solemn, and his smile sad as he spoke. "All Might's predecessor." Izuku breathed the words delicately, as if saying them too loud or in too optimistic of a tone would break the old man in front of him. The previously energetic and overly humorous man before him now looked like a broken vase, barely held together by a sloppy tape job and ready to burst if the wind blew too hard. It was strange for Midoriya to see. He didn't know what he was supposed to say or do. He didn't have to, though. The doorbell rang. It was a package from Amazon. Since the old microwave was broken, Gran Torino ordered another one. He seemingly feigned ignorance of the fact that he, himself, shattered the first one. With the previous mood now dissipated, the rest of the morning was, comparatively, light-hearted and chipper. Unfamiliar with the type of microwave he was using, Izuku put a plate in it that was too big and got yelled at by Gran Torino for not correctly heating the taiyaki. Once their morning antics were done, the pair went straight to training. This round of training consisted of Midoriya needing to land a hit on Gran Torino within a 1-minute time limit. It didn't even take 30 seconds for Izuku to land a blow. He grazed Gran Torino, nearly slamming the retired hero into the ground. The rest of the minute was spent with Deku in pursuit, and Torino straining himself to narrowly avoid or get grazed by his attacks. When the time limit ended, Midoriya had a wide grin on his face. How was that? He was trying to catch his breath as he spoke. He pushed himself a lot more than he had expected to. Torino hit his face, but his body's movement gave away how much he had pushed himself. With every inhale, he would grow, and with every exhale, he would shrink back down. "You did good, kid. Almost got me a couple times. Analyzing and predicting to find my movement, forcing me with aggressive feints. You seem like you're the type who's always thinking. Who taught you to fight like that?" All Might's too straightforward to think like that. He didn't wait for an answer to his question, though. The pair went right back to sparring. The rest of the Izuku's second day there, and the beginning of his third, were spent tirelessly training with Gran Torino. After they were done sparring on the third day of the internship, Torino decided it was time to get to the actual interning part of it. Midoriya changed into his hero costume and they left. They went by taxi to the bullet train and left for Shinjuku. Izuku noted to himself that they would be passing by Hasu. He was still worried about Tenya and scared of what he might do. He decided it'd probably be a good idea to try and get in touch with him tonight, if possible. By the time they were passing by Hasu, it was already night. Midoriya sent a message to Ida, but it was left on read. Izuku and Gran Torino kept up some small talk for a bit, but disaster soon struck. A seemingly limp body shattered through the bullet train like it was papier mâche. Panic soon set in for the riding citizens. It was a hero. Luckily, he was still alive. That didn't give anyone room to breathe, though. Not even a moment later, a giant lanky white Namu came through the train. Its proportions were grotesquely elongated. Gran Torino jumped out of the train and used his body like a bullet to assault the Namu. Before he left, he told Deku to stay put. The landscape outside the train was devastating. Large-scale explosions set off in various parts of the city. It was a shock to see. It was horrible to think that his friend was someone in that mess right now. Izuku headed into Hasu City. He was too concerned about Ida to stay on the train, and people needed help evacuating. Despite his warnings, he was sure Tenya went after the hero killer. The next thing he saw broke his heart. Tenya lay defeated at the blades of the hero killer. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer of this video and editors for this video. Their details will be in the description. If you're a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord that is in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested and hit that like button if you liked the video. Until next time, peace out mortals, have a fantastic day.